If you ask anyone who grew up in the 1980s, they'll tell you Back to the Future wasn't just a movie, it was a cultural reset. Marty McFly, Doc Brown, and that stainless steel DeLorean weren't just characters on a screen. They were icons, the kind people drew on school notebooks and debated about on playgrounds. But here's the thing most fans never realized. The version of Back to the Future we all know and love almost didn't exist. It took years of rejection, rewrites, and some truly bizarre decisions to get the film made. And hidden inside those movies are strange details, forgotten controversies, and secrets that only the most obsessive fans ever caught. So instead of jumping back to 1955, let's time travel through the unbelievable behind-the-scenes story of Back to the Future, the one nobody ever told you. The rejection marathon. It's hard to imagine a world where Back to the Future doesn't exist, but that was almost the reality. When screenwriter Bob Gale first started shopping the script around Hollywood in the early 1980s, he was met with brutal rejection. Not one or two polite no's. We're talking about more than 40 rejections. Studio after studio turned them down. The problem? Executives thought time travel movies were dead on arrival. Some claimed they didn't sell, while others argued the script was too soft. What they wanted was something raunchier, like Porky's, which was dominating at the time. And when Gale and director Robert Zemeckis brought the script to Disney, hoping the family-friendly studio might bite, the executives there were horrified. Why? Because of one subplot, Marty accidentally falling for his teenage mom. One Disney exec reportedly said, "This is Disney, and you're giving us a movie about incest?" Needless to say, that door slammed shut fast. Things finally changed after Zemeckis directed Romancing the Stone in 1984. That film was a hit, and suddenly studios wanted to hear what he had lined up next. That's when Steven Spielberg, already a powerhouse in Hollywood, stepped in. With his name behind the project, Back to the Future finally had weight. Even then, it wasn't all smooth sailing. Universal's head, Sid Sheinberg, liked the script, but demanded changes. For one, Doc Brown was originally named Professor Brown. Sheinberg shot that down, saying, "Kids don't like professors, call him Doc." And Doc's companion? Believe it or not, it was supposed to be a chimpanzee. Sheinberg dismissed it immediately. No movie with a chimp ever made money. He wasn't wrong, so the chimp became Einstein, Doc's trusty dog. And yet, that was just the start. Because even the time machine itself was nothing like the one you know. The time machine. Nobody wanted. When you think Back to the Future, you think of the DeLorean. The gull-wing doors, the brushed steel, the flashing lights. It looks like something out of outer space. But in the earliest drafts, the time machine wasn't a car at all. It was a refrigerator. Yep, you heard that right. The original idea had Marty surviving a nuclear blast by hiding inside a lead-lined fridge, which would then send him back in time. Sounds wild, but here's the problem. Zemeckis worried kids might actually crawl inside their own fridges, trying to copy it. Suddenly, the nuclear fridge idea didn't look so clever. That's when Gale reimagined the machine as a vehicle. The DeLorean won out because it looked futuristic, and honestly, because it was just weird enough to feel believable. The car itself had a reputation. Its creator, John DeLorean, had been caught up in a massive substance scandal just a few years earlier. It gave the car a bit of a dangerous edge. Ford even offered $75,000 to replace it with a Mustang. Gale didn't hesitate. His response, "Doc Brown doesn't drive a Mustang." And that decision turned out to be iconic. But the man driving it? That almost went very differently. The Marty McFly that never was. Most people can't imagine Marty McFly as anyone but Michael J. Fox. His timing, his energy, the way he turned Marty into a likable, awkward teenager, it just works. But originally, Marty wasn't Michael J. Fox at all. It was Eric Stoltz. Stoltz, best known later for Mask and Pulp Fiction, filmed for 5 full weeks. That's over a month of footage, scenes, stunts, dialogue all in the can. But there was a problem. Stoltz was acting in a serious, dramatic way. He wasn't bringing the comedy Zemeckis and Gale needed. As one crew member put it, he thought he was in a tragedy. The directors had always wanted Michael J. Fox, but he was tied up with the sitcom Family Ties. Finally, they pulled the plug. They scrapped almost $4 million worth of work and started over with Fox, who brought the perfect mix of charm and humor. Still, fans swear Stoltz never fully disappeared. Some claim if you pause certain scenes, the diner fight, the DeLorean chase, you can see Stoltz's taller frame. Whether it's him or a stunt double, the debate keeps fans re-watching frame by frame. And while Fox saved the role, his schedule nearly destroyed him. The schedule from hell. At 22 years old, Michael J. Fox was living every young actor's dream, starring in a hit sitcom and a blockbuster movie. But behind the scenes, he was running on fumes. Here's how he described it in his memoir. A driver picked him up at 9:30 in the morning for a full day of rehearsals on Family Ties. By 5 in the evening, another driver whisked him off to Universal Studios. From 6 p.m. until just before sunrise, he was Marty McFly. Then, it was back to his apartment for 2 or 3 hours of sleep, sometimes literally carried inside by the crew. Then he'd wake up and do it all over again, day after day, for 4 months straight. It was brutal, but somehow Fox pulled it off. He didn't just survive the schedule, he thrived. His performance brought life to Marty McFly, and the movie became unforgettable. And while Fox was pushing through sleepless nights, the movie itself was hiding clever jokes and tiny details that fans are still spotting today. Hidden details and inside jokes. If you've only watched Back to the Future once or twice, you probably missed them. But the filmmakers stuffed the movie with clues and callbacks. The opening scene shows Doc Brown's lab, packed with clocks. One of them has a tiny man hanging from the minute hand. Blink and you miss it. But later, Doc is literally hanging from the clock tower, trying to connect the lightning cable. Then, there's the mall. At the start, it's Twin Pines Mall. But when Marty crashes into the Peabody farm in 1955, he knocks down one of the farmer's beloved pine trees. When Marty returns to 1985, the sign now reads, Lone Pine Mall. Subtle, but brilliant. Of course, not all the details were intentional. When Marty crashes through the farm field, a scarecrow gets tossed into the air, but in the next shot, it's suddenly pressed against the windshield. A tiny continuity slip fans still laugh about. And then there's the cassette Marty uses to freak out George McFly. The label? Edward Van Halen. It wasn't a real Van Halen song. Eddie himself admitted years later he just recorded a few seconds of pure noise for fun. These details are fun. But behind the scenes, not everything was so lighthearted. Controversies and behind-the-scenes drama. The biggest controversy? Crispin Glover. He played George McFly in the first film, but he didn't return for the sequels. The official reason? Contract disputes. Glover wanted more money, and he also disliked how the first movie ended, saying it sent the wrong message about material success. The studio's solution was controversial. They hired another actor, put him in prosthetics, and flipped old footage of Glover. At one point, George McFly is even shown upside down in a back-stretching contraption just to disguise the difference. Glover was furious. He sued, and he won. The case changed Hollywood forever, creating new rules about using an actor's likeness without permission. Then there was Sid Sheinberg again. Remember how he killed the chimp sidekick? He also wanted to rename the movie. His choice? Spaceman from Pluto. Seriously. He even wanted Marty to introduce himself as the Spaceman from Pluto during the barn scene. Spielberg handled it with genius. Instead of fighting, he sent Sheinberg a thank you note for the hilarious memo. Sheinberg never mentioned it again. But despite all the chaos, the movie had a surprisingly wholesome origin. The yearbook that started it all. Bob Gale didn't come up with Back to the Future in some Hollywood office. He was in his parents' basement flipping through his father's high school yearbook. He asked himself, if I went to school with my dad, would we even be friends? That one thought sparked the story. Gale brought it to Zemeckis, and the idea grew. A teenager travels back in time, meets his parents, and accidentally changes the future. From there, everything fell into place. Spielberg backed them. Zemeckis directed with precision. The cast delivered unforgettable performances. And John DeLorean, whose company had gone bankrupt, suddenly found his car immortalized. After the film's release, he even sent a letter to Zemeckis, thanking him for keeping his dream alive. Conclusion. So what made Back to the Future timeless? It wasn't just a cool car or a catchy soundtrack. It was rejection, persistence, rewrites, and accidents. It was a team of people fighting for their vision, even when the studios laughed in their faces. That's why, decades later, we're still talking about it. Still finding hidden details. Still debating fan theories. Still rewatching Marty and Doc risk it all for one more chance to fix time. And maybe that's the real magic. Back to the Future isn't just a movie about traveling through time. It's proof that sometimes the hardest projects, the ones everyone rejects, end up being the stories that last forever. So tell me this, which of these behind-the-scenes twists surprised you the most? Drop your thoughts below and stick around, because the next story we've got might just be wilder than time travel itself.